To whoever may need this nugget of encouragement, things will be alright, so quit your worry.
What's good, y'all? First episode. Welcome to For the Underdogs. I got my boy here. I'm super excited. Entrepreneur, 10-year NFL vet, multi-talented, creative, so many different accolades that I could name off, but this man is somebody that I consider an underdog because so many situations he's been in, I seen him come out on top, so I'm excited to have him here. Billy Turner.
My guy.
What's up, man?
What's cracking?
How you doing?
I'm good, fam. I'm excited to be here.
I appreciate you coming, bro. It's I'm excited because it's the first one, and I chose you to be here because you really somebody that, you know, our relationship grew since coming into the league and everything. And when I look back at your story, I kind of want to highlight that because I don't know if you give yourself enough credit, but I definitely want to give you that credit for some of the situations you've been through and where you're at right now. So I appreciate you being here. It's crazy seeing you with no hair though.
I know.
How you feel cutting the dreads off was, I know it was like, it was tough, you know?
You would expect it to be this giant thing almost, but it wasn't even like a personal experience. It was very much so like, call it 30, 40 days where I'm kind of considering, you know, cutting it.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with you. I had a conversation with a lot of people. And I mean, me and you talked for like 30, 40 minutes about just cutting my hair, which is wild. And then, you know, I talked to my pops, and my pops has been growing his for, I was at 18 years. He was probably 20, 21. And he was just like, I mean, if you're going to cut it, then cut it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I mean, all right, but like, you're not cutting yours. So.
Right. And it's obviously like some attachment behind it. I feel like, I mean, obviously, since I known you, you had dreads. And I feel like when you think of Billy Turner, everybody is like the locks. You know what I'm saying? So what was the attachment like? What was that piece like, cutting it off and moving on? And did it like signify anything as far as moving into the next chapter?
It definitely signified that. The hardest part for me, and why I had so many conversations, everything that I believe from, call it a energy standpoint, you know, there's so many different cultures around the world that believe in your hair holding energy.
Of course.
So
yeah.
Growing your hair out for so long without touching it, you know, without cutting it, 18 years, and going through everything that I went through over the course of those 18 years. I was a freshman in high school when I started growing them, all the way up until being, you know, finishing year 10 in the league, on the verge of potential retirement and like a new chapter, a new walk of life, so to speak. Like it definitely felt like it was time, but all of that energy, right? All of the time that passed and all the things that you went through, that I feel like obviously is gonna remain with me. It was a weird feeling, but honestly, we just took some scissors
and got to it.
We chopped them, and that was that. And I just continued on with my day. And the first 2 or 3 weeks were weird because like I would be in the shower and I would like get out of the shower, be in the shower, like trying to move my hair, but there wouldn't be anything there. Or like putting like a coat or something on, and I'm like trying to fling my hair out the way, and there's no hair there. It was a strange feeling, but it was the right choice in my opinion.
And people don't realize how much like dedication and discipline goes into something like that. I feel like, especially with you, when I looked at you, I'm like, this man, it says something about your character when you could go that long and through the whole process and then just get rid of it. It's crazy.
I should have counted how many times in between those 18 years that I actually considered cutting it and chose not to. The ultimate, not goal, but what I told myself was when I started growing them, when I was a freshman in high school, I'm like, I'm going to grow these until I'm done playing football. And when I'm done, I'm cutting them.
Yeah.
You know, so yes, I might potentially retire, but even if I don't, if I play one more year, it's going to be a new chapter for me. It's probably going to be in a role or a situation where I'm mentoring and I'm helping, a little bit of what I've done the last year and a half. But either way, it signifies a new chapter for me.
Yeah.
On the field, off the field, just a new walk of life. So
That's
like
dope.
I said, it was the right choice, although it does feel weird at times.
Can you speak on that? Like, I think that kind of goes hand in hand in life when you're stepping into a new role. You know what I'm saying? Like, for so many years, you've been a starter in the league. You got a name for yourself. And then people don't understand the pride that it takes to kind of, not take a step back, but really understand where you're at in your career. And kind of, I took pride in being a mentor for younger guys, like teaching them the plays and things like that, because that's what I wanted as a young guy coming in. And I think it says a lot about you to be able to go into that space confidently and not feel any type of ill will. Can you speak on that?
Yeah, I mean, getting to 10 years in itself was a struggle. It was hard, as so many guys know that try and play, that do play, and that make it that far further or fall short of making it that far. Everyone's journey is their journey. But, the change of pace, if you may, from, working your way into a starting position with teams and, being there for a few years and then, on the tail end and, you're a backup and you're in that mentorship role.
Yeah,
it's different.
it is.
And you have to be in touch with yourself, but it's an ego blow to a certain extent.
For sure.
And if you don't understand and you can't conceptualize what's going on, but take a step back and, have appreciation for not only where you are, but where you came from and where you had been in the past, then you're going to have a hard time with that.
Yeah.
And so many people talk about the end of their career and it's almost like you're still in it, but you're talking about retirement. I think there's almost like a stigma that exists around the league, and rightfully so, when that has to do with guys retiring.
Yeah.
Because that shift and that cutoff from doing something so physically demanding and something that took up so much time in your life for so long, and then it's just over.
Yeah.
Just like that. And you got to move on, but you're in your 20s, you're in your 30s, it's different.
It is.
It's a very scary thing. And I think a lot of guys struggle with it. Obviously, I think a lot of guys excel at it. I've had this conversation a lot over the last 12 to 18 months because I know that that's where I'm at right now at, this point in my life and this point in my career. So yeah, there's fear, but it's also welcomed, and my big thing is I want something to get me out of bed, finding that purpose, I think, is the struggle with a lot of guys. And 100%. I think I'm on the verge of finding that in a few different areas, which, is exciting, but at the same time, it's different. You don't get to wake up every morning and go and compete.
Yeah.
You don't get to strap up and put the helmet on and run out in front of a crowd of 80, 90, 100,000 people with millions of people around the world watching you, going out there it's a gladiator sport. And
it is. It's different. I feel like over my last couple years, kind of moving into this space of what do I want to do next, that motivation piece has been big, trying to figure out what gets me out of bed. And then there's also a piece to that, though, is you got to work on yourself. Mm-hmm. That's a big piece that I think a lot of guys kind of miss is they go straight from the league and they think they can be the same person within themselves outside of the league. And I think it takes a lot of getting used to and some self-work to kind of just be comfortable in your skin to walk out and be Billy Turner. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Can you speak on the work that you've done? And I don't want to get too ahead, but I definitely noticed a shift in you probably around 2017, 18. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that was the time that you started kind of, going through it, but I definitely noticed as a friend that you was moving around a little different from a
Yeah.
good standpoint, and you kind
Yeah.
of started doing some self-work. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So throughout my career, the early on stuff in Miami, it was fun. I had a lot of fun in Miami. But my time spent in Miami, by the time I got released and ended up leaving, I didn't like football anymore.
Yeah.
Like I came all the way to a point in time where I was like contemplating if I wanted to keep playing. Like
sure.
it was not fun. The
It
things
get
that were
like
going
that.
on, the things that I mentally and emotionally was not prepared for.
Yeah.
The stuff that you can't be prepared
can't.
for.
Yeah, for
right.
sure.
And that's a part of like becoming a man and being like just a human on this planet. And that was tough for me. So I was definitely in a state of depression for a few months there.
Yeah.
And, you know, by the time I ended up in Denver, Denver was a good situation for me, not from getting on the field and playing, because I was never really like a starter or the named starter any of those years in Denver.
Yeah.
I was always a backup role, but every time I stepped into play, I did a good job.
Yeah.
And, you know, I came back around to the game of football. I started to love it more when I got to Denver. And a part of that was the people that I was fortunate enough to be around. You know, I think God blessed me and brought people into my life at the right point in time. And that completely shifted a lot of things for me. And my own personal work was honestly, it was, and you're about right. It was about 16, 17, 18, somewhere in those 2.5, 3 years.
Yeah.
It was, you know, people say like, well, fake it till you make it. And I never really liked that term or that phrase, but like I kind of understood it. So when it comes to happiness and coming from, you know, a state of almost kind of being depressed, I had to figure out a way to like jumpstart my mind and my mentals to like be happy again.
For sure.
So it was just positive affirmations and things around me and almost that positive self-talk
Like
that
what?
I was.
Like what?
I mean, you probably remember from 17 to 18 when I'm on Snapchat and I'm just posting these dumbass stories,
Yeah.
you know, just smiling. But a lot of it was based behind music.
Yeah.
Like I'd be in the car driving, going to a workout, and a great song would come on, and I'm like, okay.
That's a good
and then I'm
feeling,
like,
too.
let me build off of this,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
and
for
that's
sure.
really where it stemmed, like for me. And it's funny because all the way to now, on the verge of retirement, the one thing that I carried over from that off season with me, and it was probably 16 or 17 that off season, I don't remember. But the one thing I carried with me through the rest of my career was playing music on my phone in the facility the entire day. I'm walking down the halls. I'm in there eating lunch. I'm walking into the film room. We have meetings. I am playing music on my phone until somebody tells me to turn the shit off,
For sure.
or I know it's time to turn it down.
Yeah.
And it's always old music. You know, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, the shit that I
good
grew
vibes,
up
yeah.
listening to,
Yeah,
right? The
for
shit
sure.
that I would, you know, be in the basement when my dad is working out, training people, and I'm listening to this shit, and it was very nostalgic for me, but it was a happy time.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I picked up on that happiness and brought that back into my life in that current, you know, that current state. And it's funny because people are like, damn, Bill, turn your music off. I'm like, no, because there's going to be a point in time where you understand why I'm playing this music.
For sure. I think
You know
it's
what I
dope.
mean?
Yeah, I think it's dope when you can find like little things like that kind of put you in a good mood. Because those are
Yeah.
hard to come by. Like,
They are.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I want to talk about, because you said the people that you was around in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about like how important that is to have the right people around you.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a lesson that I've had to learn since retiring. You know, a lot of people come around, and I think it's important to like value those people that have been solid for you.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about a little like what that meant for you, just the people that you were around?
Yeah. So it was it's one of those things where you don't really know it in the moment.
Yeah.
You kind of figure it out afterwards.
Yeah.
And if you're fortunate enough to still have those people around you afterwards, then it's like, all right, well, let me give some appreciation here where it's long, overdue.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of situations like that for me with individual people, but having those people around to be staples in my life when I didn't even know it was crucial.
Yeah.
And a lot of things were learned. So just from a emotional and mental standpoint in relationships of all kinds, the one thing that I learned that I carry with me, I mean, I have a symbol tattooed on the back of my head because it means that much to me, is learning how to be vulnerable. As a man, that's very difficult to do in today's society.
It is.
But also as a man in the NFL.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? When there's so many egos and it's just this macho world and it's a gladiator sport, right?
Yeah,
you can be on top of the world for so long, but you can get knocked down quick.
100%.
It doesn't matter. We all get humbled in this league.
Yeah.
So
and in life in general.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
So the vulnerability is probably my biggest takeaway from those 2 or 3 years that I was in Denver from different people that I learned. And it meant a lot to me because it was something that I never knew how to tap in. I think I was vulnerable to a certain extent, but maybe
you had
it was
your guard up.
Yeah, it was it was a superficial level, and we all go through things and shit happens and, we're men, we build walls. I think that's a very natural thing for us.
Yeah.
So trying to break those walls down and those barriers are very difficult if you don't understand what they are even.
It's tough. I feel like I definitely had to go through that, being able to be comfortable bringing out that vulnerable side. Because like you said, we're kind of groomed to be in this space of gladiators.
Yeah.
And I feel like the people that I have around me, that's why I cherish our relationship because we can talk about those type of things and it don't feel like I'm letting you get one up on me if I tell you I'm struggling or, it's very organic.
Family, right?
Yeah.
And that's how it's supposed to feel. And I think we're very fortunate to have that type of relationship. I mean, I think back in 15 when you got drafted, and I didn't know you at all, but then you ended up living with me for a year and a half, and that was it. You know what I'm saying? We made our connection, our bond, and every year and however long it's been, it just it levels up. So it's dope to have that relationship with somebody, especially in a world where you meet so many people.
Yeah,
right. There's so many people in and out of the building. You would think that you would have all these friends and
you really don't.
You got a lot of acquaintances.
Yeah, but a couple close ones. I want to talk about our relationship a little bit because it was a weird deal in my opinion, and we never really talked about it man to man. But just a little background. I think obviously I was drafted in 15. Bill was there already in Miami, and I think we ended up competing without even knowing that we were in a competitive, for a spot.
None of us really realized it until the start of the season.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we were all a little surprised at the start of the season. Obviously, a lot of hard work goes into it, but it is what it is. And I want to talk about how it could have ended our relationship as friends if we took it there. Because I think a lot of people, not even just in football, but in life, people had that competitive nature. They kind of let that get ahead of what it is to have a real friendship. And obviously, like you said, we had a connection early on as friends, and we could have really kind of fell off and held that grudge against each other. But I just want to get your perspective on things because we never talked about it. How did you process it in your mind? Because I know I was in a position where, like I said, had that guard up. I don't know how I want to really play this, but I love this dude as a friend, but also we competing. So it goes back and forth. You know what I'm saying? There's days that I'm mad that you had a great day.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
but I didn't have as good as a day that I thought I had. But that's as competitors. But then off the field, we were still friends. How did you process that?
I mean, first and foremost, I think you have to have some shit to you to be able to go through that, but also come out on the other side and remain tight and close and still building, foundations of friendships with people through that entire situation.
Yeah.
So that's first and foremost. But again, the beautiful part about it was like, once we figured out that we were like competing, like it is what it is and it was what it was. But like there was never any like ill will between us. There was no negativity. You know what I'm saying? Like it went without like being said. We never had to like chop it up or like communicate about it. We just knew we were on like the same wavelength, and that was the dopest part about it. There didn't need to be a conversation that was had at that point in time. So that was super dope. But shit, it was strange because when you get into the league and you have the opportunity to compete for a starting job, you're so focused on learning things, the playbook, you're focused on not fucking up and having the quarterback yell at you or any of these coaches. Like you're focused on what you have to do so much at any given point in time in the huddle, so on and so forth, that like you almost don't pay attention to everything else around you, like who you're competing with. Sure. And it works to an advantage, I think, at times. And it probably works more to an advantage then than it does later in your career. And I think there's positives and negatives there. But I mean, it was a strange thing. We were in camp and I was starting all the preseason games. And I'm like, all right. And I felt like good and like confident, like I was getting better. And then we get to the start of the season and coach told me that I wasn't going to be starting, that you were going to be starting. I was like, oh, okay. And I mean, naturally I was pissed off, but like not pissed off at you. I was pissed off that like there was no conversation or and that like typical in the NFL, communication that lacks. But I was like, oh shit. Okay, so then it was over the next 4 or 5 weeks, like figuring out how I can get better. So when I had an opportunity to play, I wasn't going to squander it, and that was what I focused on at that point in time. And obviously how it all, what it boiled down to when we both got released, you ended up in New England and I ended up in Denver, and
that's
here we are, like years later, like you know what I mean. So
year 10, bro. I think I said it before, but I really want to give you that credit for how you handled yourself throughout those years, because it was inspiring seeing you go on to make a name for yourself. You know what I'm saying? And like, bro, really the mentality shifted for you. And you really started playing some good ball, still playing good ball. You know what I'm saying? But like, just seeing that whole, why I consider you an underdog is because you've been in those situations. But can you speak about like your mindset at that time and how you might have thought you was done, but something, you know what I'm saying, something propelled you to keep grinding. Like talk about and give some advice on something that, a lot of people may have given up in that situation, but you prevailed.
I mean, look, the waters got muddy, and it was a tough time, but just from like a sheer competitor, like I just had to figure it out, and I was not going to quit. I came to that moment in time when I got to Denver. I was not going to quit. That was not going to be how I ended my career. And when I made that choice, it was just work, figuring things out. And, all the way from changing my body and like losing weight and like making sure that I was able to use my own athletic strengths to benefit me and not hurt me. And I think that was a big shift for me playing wise, was coming into my own, as an athlete at that level, and like, what are my strengths? You know, what are my weaknesses? And being able to kind of figure that out is what helped propel me forward. So that was definitely a part of it. But more than anything, like, you're a young athlete and you hear all these old heads come in and they try and tell you that it's 90% mental, it's 10% physical, or even, you know, more than that. And it's like, man, whatever. No.
Yeah.
But then when you're in it and you actually realize that, you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
Like
mental
that's
is
the
real.
that's the reality of it.
Yeah.
You know, like everyone at the next level is big, fast, strong, like elite in so many different categories, in so many different ways.
The mental piece gets underplayed so much.
Exactly.
And you really gotta be in the right headspace to like be successful. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
it's hard to just step into the league and be that way.
Yeah.
It's very hard
Go
at
through
any
growing
position,
pains.
right?
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I want to ask you, who is like that person that you go to when you're going through these hard times? Like, who is somebody that always gives you good advice, or you feel like outside of your boys, you know what I'm saying? Outside of like talking to me or whoever the case may be, who's the person that you go to kind of come back down to earth and be who you are?
For me, I would say it depends on what it is. Like, what is the adversity or the bump in the road that I'm dealing with, and that's how I determine who I'm going to approach.
Yeah.
You know, there's been points in time in my life where there has been that one person that I'll go to with everything, you know, and there's points in time where I'm at right now where it's not everything, right? I like to believe and think that I'm very aware of my surroundings and also intuitive to the point where I can understand kind of just by listening and speaking with somebody like what they're going through. And I don't like putting shit on people.
Yeah,
you
I
know?
feel that. You definitely gotta be like careful of who you vent what to. Yeah. Because some people can't handle certain
and you don't want to
things.
be that last thing that just put enough on their back to like, no, like I don't want to do that to anyone. So I'm very careful with, you know, who I approach and what I approached people with.
Self-awareness is there. That's big.
Yeah. But honestly, throughout my career and just throughout my life in general, it's also weird that I like use the career thing as like but again, like that's the whole nature of being an athlete. It's like throughout my career, it's almost like a time thing. Like it's gonna be weird moving forward. You know what I mean?
Because you're gonna get into real life after the career.
Yeah, but throughout my life, I've approached different people. And, you know, when I was in Miami, when I was in Green Bay, and when I was in Denver, and even in Minnesota, I spoke to a therapist. And at any given point in time where I know I need to get shit off my chest, but I don't feel comfortable enough to like speak to some of the people around me, then that's usually been my outlet. And that alone helps me. Like it doesn't even like, I don't need an answer from you. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I just need to vent. Yeah. I just need to get shit off my chest.
100%.
And it feels so much better afterwards. And obviously, you know, if you find the right person, the right therapist or someone to, you know, speak to where they can give advice and point you in certain directions and almost allow you and help you to reflect, that's a giant thing that's very, very helpful and crucial.
It is. I feel like I want to bring light to the whole therapy situation, because I've been in therapy for some years now, and just being consistent with it, I've seen how much it's helped me over the years. Mm-hmm. And I feel like a lot of guys, especially black men in general, not even talking about NFL, just black men in general, we're kind of brought up in this like, you don't need therapy, or therapy's not for you, or, you know, it may not be cool. A lot of guys are scared to admit that they are in therapy. Like, I'll be the first to tell you, bro, since I've had a therapist, a lot of things have changed for me. Mm-hmm. Can you speak on just the stigma around therapy and why you started therapy in general and why it's important? Because I think a lot of either young guys, old guys, like people in general need to hear it.
Yeah. So for me, again, like I touched on before, this all comes back to vulnerability for me. So like as a Black man in this community, like there's a lot of stigmas that exist, you know, they range from A to Z, which I'm sure we all know. But even with that being said, you have to come to a point in time. You don't have to, because some people definitely don't.
Some people don't.
Right.
It's a scary place to be,
right.
too.
But when you come to a point where you are vulnerable enough to take that step forward, to be different and to help yourself heal in some kind of sense of the way, then you're on the right track, in my opinion. And that first step is hard to fucking take.
It is.
It's hard because, you know, in the Black community, it's different. It's like black sheep type shit.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people don't do that.
Yeah.
And it's hard for people in their community to like take that step almost out of bounds and do something different and to be, you know, to be confident enough to do it.
Yeah.
You know, to be different than everybody else.
Yeah.
And I think that we've definitely evolved over the past 10 years, let's say, but
sure.
I mean, we got a long way to go, obviously, but again, taking that first step and being vulnerable enough to admit to yourself
that you need it.
That you need help, but that you also want help.
Yeah.
You want to be better in so many different, you know, ways of life, not only for you, but for your family, for the people around you. And you know that if you're going to be the first one to take that step, you're going to establish a foundation that's going to bring everyone else, or at least have the possibility to bring everyone else along with.
Bruh,
right?
That's deep, bruh, because I think a lot of people don't realize that you could change so much, not just within yourself, but like when you start doing therapy, you're changing generations that come after you just off of the way that you're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's big. I think it's a sign of strength, to be honest. Like, I hope that we get away from, and I think we're moving away from like that whole, you don't need therapy, or, you know, therapies for this or that. I think it's a sign of strength. I think it's a sign, like you said, vulnerability. Yeah. And I obviously think it's so helpful for athletes, but people in general that deal with everyday things that they don't really get to talk about. Because when you don't talk about that stuff, it just builds up. It builds up and builds up, and then you're wondering why, you know, you're looking for, you know, outside things to fulfill that. Yeah. You're not really addressing it from a healthy standpoint.
Yeah, it's tough, man. And one of the harder things being an athlete and stepping away from the game, not only like for good and stepping into retirement, but on a daily basis, is flipping that switch.
Yeah.
You step on the field and you're a gladiator.
Yeah.
You're a monster, right? You step off that field, you go home to your wife, your kids, your family. Yeah. You can't be that same guy. Yeah. You can't. And that switch
takes a
hard.
lot.
Yeah.
It takes a lot to turn that switch off. That switch is like, it's so powerful. And I don't think people realize you really can't be the same guy. Like, I feel like you here and then you on the field is two different people.
Yeah. And
you know
see,
what I'm saying?
There's another switch too. That's what people don't realize. There's another switch.
Yeah.
That is just emotional and mental, like, well-being.
Yeah.
And being that like emotional person in so many different ways that your wife needs, that your kids need, that your family needs. Yeah. And that's that step towards therapy, towards getting help, and towards like teaching yourself and showing you that, no, there's not just one switch, there's another one. Yeah. Let's figure out how this works and let's figure out how to turn it on. Yeah. Right? Like,
that's crazy, because I feel like you using that metaphor is so many different switches that, like, even since I've been done playing, that I've kind of teetered on, you know, the brink of
shining the light on them,
figuring it out. Like, it's more than just the competitive switch, the family man switch. Like, you know, there's so many other facets of life that you got to be able to turn those switches off and on. That's crazy that you think of it that way.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing though.
Yeah.
Like when you find a new switch or when something's like
Oh
brought
yeah,
up.
yeah, it is.
That's a dope feeling.
I want to talk about your brand, Public Immunity. That's a switch in my mind.
Yeah.
And your creativity around that. Like, obviously, you make everything, and it comes from a creative. I don't even know how to describe it, but it's you. Like, when you think of a brand and what all the product is, that's Billy Turner behind it. What was your mindset when you were thinking of creating this brand and what it stands for?
Honestly, when that whole thing started, it was the very beginning of me stepping into being like a creator, and I didn't even know it.
Yeah.
There was a lot of years where I found myself doing these random art projects and trying to create these different things and calling my dad to come over and help me do whatever.
Shout out to Pops too.
Shout out. Exactly.
Yeah.
And it came all the way to a point in time where I'm like, man, let me try this clothing brand thing, because I found myself, customizing and doing a lot of things with clothes. And it happened in 2020 at the perfect time, right? It was the perfect outlet for me, in the midst of a pandemic, to be able to have that escape. And it's been good, and I don't view it as I don't really view it as a business. I view it as a hobby. And I think because I view it as a hobby, that's a part of the reason that I continue to just keep coming back to it.
Yeah.
I'll go months or a year without like doing anything or creating anything for it. But at the same time, like I'm always creating stuff and I'm sewing and I'm making these different creations clothing wise. Like it's just a point in time before I pick it back up and create something else and then release, a couple more pieces. So it's a great outlet for me because it helps me, and it has helped me so many times, step away from the game, but step away from just the outside world and all the chaos and bullshit that can exist in anybody's life at any given point in time.
For sure.
I find myself during the season, I have like 3 or 4 different sewing machines now. And I find myself during the season, like I'll come home from practice and I'll just jump on the sewing machine for like some hours. That's
a release for you.
Yeah,
for
man,
sure.
just like get lost in it. And I might have been pissed off before, but by the time I'm done, I'm on the phone, I'm calling people, I'm smiling, I'm laughing. Like it's a release for me, and it's the perfect thing for me. And it's exactly what I've needed over these past few years of my career, because there is a lot of ups and downs, and it's dope to know that I have a release like that.
That's dope. Did you have any, because I know when I started thinking about the idea of this podcast, I had like some fears of starting it as, everyone has a podcast, but what's going to make mine different? Did you have any fears around starting a brand and what, any failures or anything that kind of worried you about starting it?
There's always going to be some fears, right? There's going to be some anxiety, if you will, that kind of comes up and stems from whether it's past things in your life or whether it's just, kind of being scared to like put your shit out there. Because being a creative and creating like anything, it's like in the world of football, you step out onto that field on Sunday and that is your product that you're putting out there. Yeah. So almost having like that anxiety of fear because you don't want to fuck up, right? You want to be great and you want to be, as close to perfect as possible.
Yeah, you take pride in it. You take pride in it. Yeah, for sure.
So it's the same thing. Like as a creative, the things that I have made and that I make, like, I don't have a problem making them for myself and even like family members. Like the perfect descriptor of me, like if you did not know me as a person, the best way to get to know me is walk into my house. You walk into my house and you look around, it's the perfect like descriptor and example of who I am as a person.
All
right. So like making stuff to sell it was a big step for me, but like everything else in my life, I kind of just said, fuck it. Like, it's the worst that's going to happen. People don't buy it and people talk shit. Like, I deal with that on a weekly basis being in the NFL. Like,
it's
I
hard.
don't care about that.
Yeah,
you know?
that's a dope mentality to have. I think it's hard to get to that point. I think I'm at that point now. When I start something, I'm like, I don't give a damn what it's about, you know, or what people think about it. Like, I'm gonna do it because I'm being fulfilled by it, and it's a release for me, or whatever the case may be. I think that's a dope mentality to have.
When you get over that like hump and that feeling, and you stay true to yourself, that's when the real shit starts happening too. Like when you get comfortable in your hobby and your thing that you're starting, that new entrepreneurial type business, that venture, that whatever that does it for you, and you get over that hump, that's the time when shit starts coming to life.
And you just gotta start. You gotta start, because a lot of people, they let them fears kind of take over.
It's
I
hard
feel
to
like
take that step,
bro. I was at that point with this, like, you know, it comes from the whole vulnerability thing, putting yourself out there, and, you know, being different than what you normally, or what people may think about you, and you're putting your work out there for display. It's definitely a big step, and it gives you that confidence to kind of keep moving forward.
Yeah, you got to be you got to be comfortable in your own skin, which I know people say a lot, but being an athlete and getting to that point and like being on that stage and at that level, and then transitioning and like putting yourself out there in a different way, like that's a whole new feeling of being comfortable in your own skin.
It is,
right? Because it's the complete opposite. It's very, very different.
Yeah. That's deep right there.
Yeah.
Bro, what's next for you, bro? Like, obviously, we know the season will be coming soon. I know the brand is what the brand is, and it's constantly evolving and changing. You're constantly evolving and changing. Like, what is Billy Turner looking at for the years to come, and as far as inspiring people? Because I know you got something in the back of your mind that you're thinking about doing something big. Like, what does that look like for you?
I mean, first and foremost, it's deciding if I'm going to continue to play or not. Right? It's deciding that, because so much goes into that, and that's a big choice and a big decision. If I want to play one more, if I think I can play another more, I think that is step one for me. But even with that being said, and that being step one, there's so many other things that I am doing, not for preparation of like retirement, but just things that I like find interesting. You know, I find myself working out and talking with my trainer and talking with different people, but trying to help them in different ways, help these kids, mentor the kids that are working out and are about to like take that first step into the world of the NFL, right? Get drafted, or at least training to get drafted. And, you know, I find myself in that sense of the way, mentoring, helping, giving back to the NFL culture and family, you know, if you will. And then there's a whole nother sense of the clothing that is always going to be there, and the creation that's always going to exist, but that needs to exist for me, because if I don't have that creative spirit intact with me at any given point in time, if that flame is not lit, then I'm not me, and I don't feel comfortable.
That's big.
You know, so I always have to have that, which is why public immunity and the creation of those things is always going to be something that stands by me, because it's my outlet. And then, you know, aside from that, like moving forward into different business ventures and doing things that I want to do, we'll see.
Businessman.
Yeah, like we'll see. Like there's a lot of things that I'm working on with some different companies, some different brands, and it's going to be fun. But at the same time, it's going to be a step in a different direction that I've never been in.
For sure.
You know, from
you're going to find out a lot about yourself in those moments too.
Yeah, exactly. You know, but the positive thing, and, you know, the part that I'm not really able to see, but what people tell me, is that everything that I've been doing the last 10 years in the NFL, the last 15, 20, all the way up until this point in time right now and this present moment, like I've been preparing myself for life after football and everything else that is to come. So taking that step into a new world or a new profession, like I've been preparing myself the whole time. Like my resume of life is something crazy that's so different than anybody else that exists in that world, right?
It is.
So like like, yeah, I could be a benefit, but at the same time, like I am ready, I am prepared. And having that mindset, I think, is crucial, and it's big, because without that and not having confidence to step into anything, I think it's easier for you to crumble.
My man preaching. Hey, man, I appreciate you, dog. My real underdog, my brother, my man been in my wedding, all that. Like, I appreciate you. This is big for me. You really my first guest. And I think I know this is something that's going to be big. And I appreciate you taking part in my next chapter, because I think it says a lot about you and how you value our relationship. So I appreciate you coming by, bro. And I can't wait to see what's next for you, dog.
I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah,
it's
no
dope that
doubt.
you're taking this step too.
Yeah.
This whole thing is going to be dope. It's going to be super dope to watch from the outside, to just see you evolve into this new walk of life. I'm excited for you.
Yeah, that's real, bro.
I appreciate you,
That's
my guy.
love, dog.
Yeah. Yeah.